Okay, so there is a tried and true formula for how to get out of a fight with your partner once you're in it, and actually how to avoid it in the first place. My name's Laura Silverstein, and I am a certified Gottman couples therapist, and I'm very honored because I was invited by the Gottman Institute to present a workshop about the attack-defend communication pattern, which is the first two of Gottman's Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. So criticism and defensiveness are the first two horsemen, which are some of the symptoms that lead to separation and relationship dissatisfaction, as you probably know. And so what I'm going to do in this webinar is show you exactly how those two communication styles interact with each other and how you can avoid entering the fight and how to respond if your partner is not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of following their skills. Before you do that, I also want to tell you I have a free empathy course that you can go ahead and sign up for, which is in the link at the bottom of the YouTube video, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it as we get into it. Okay, so here comes the video. Nobody wants to fight. Very few people want to fight. Nobody says, oh, today I want to attack my partner, right? That's how I want to spend my afternoon, is having a big fight. No, it's coming from, I have something that's crucial to me, something that's important to me that I want to share. And finally, I'm going to share it. Now, oftentimes, if that person maybe was feeling a little bit afraid of the conflict, like we said, afraid of those original four horsemen, like death, destruction, and famine, and they're afraid to bring something up, what can happen is they wait a little bit too long. And so instead of bringing it up when they felt calm and grounded, they bring it up when they're mad. And then what happens is it comes across as a criticism. Okay, so if you look at this, we're going to go through the attack-defend cycle, but this is where it starts. It starts with criticism. And usually that's the way that the person brings up a topic. So when you're criticizing somebody, instead of talking about yourself, you're talking about the person as if the person that you're talking to is the problem, instead of framing it in such a way that you are wanting to work together with that person as a partner to solve a common problem. Okay. And so then what happens when it comes across as a criticism? So this is the blue conversation is what people say out loud. And then these yellow ones are what people are thinking. Okay. So the partner hears the criticism, and what happens? They feel attacked because they're thinking, I love my partner. I didn't do that on purpose. Like, why would you, like, I'm innocent. And also the degree to which you see your partner in pain emphasizes the degree to which you want to soothe their pain. And oftentimes the way that we try to soothe our partner's pain is by telling them that it's not the way they see it. Don't worry about it. It's not that bad. I'm not that bad, right? And so how that lands is the second horseman, which is self-defense. So they're feeling internally attacked, and then they respond defensively. And then what happens? So then the original speaker feels dismissed because they were trying to express their need, and their partner responded defensively, and they feel like, oh, my partner didn't get it. They didn't even listen. They don't even understand. They don't understand how important this is. And then what happens? So then they increase the intensity, volume of the criticism. So if it started off as kind of a neutral tone, it probably ratcheted up, right? And so then the person feels even more attacked and can get even more defensive. And this can very easily, second cousin of attack defend is attack model. It could just be like boom, boom, boom. Then it started off as like attacking and defending, and then the other person is like, well, I not only did I do that, but what's called a counterattack, right? So that you did that. No, I didn't. You did that, right? And then you're off to the races. That's a fight. Okay, so here's an example of the attack-defend cycle in motion. So Carson, you've been forgetting to walk the dog every morning for over 2 weeks. So Jamie feels attacked. Jamie says, I literally took him for a 2-hour walk yesterday. Carson feels dismissed. Okay. And then the cycle repeats. So then what Carson is going to want to do is then really emphasize why it's so important for this dog to get walked, because he needs exercise and and you didn't do it yesterday. And then Jamie's basically saying, but I do all this other stuff. And so it goes into a fight very, very rapidly. Okay. So if you guys haven't seen this, this is a handout from the Gottman Institute. So this is the Four Horsemen with their antidotes. And so what we're talking about, again, we're only focusing really on these first two horsemen today. And so what's happening is you have this cycle going around in circles here, which is the cycle we just looked at. And what we're going to look at very specifically is how do you use these two things, the gentle startup and taking responsibility, to, you know it, right? How to avoid the attack defend cycle in the first place, and taking responsibility is how you get out of it once you're in it. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. The goal is to move the conversation from cyclical, where you're going around and around, ratcheting up, and increasing intensity, to linear. So with a linear dialogue, it's productive. You're moving forward instead of a cycle, which is going nowhere. Okay. So in order to prevent the attack defend cycle, we want to start right here at the criticism part. And that's where you want to use John Gottman's soft startup formula to start the dialogue so that you don't even get into this cycle in the first place. That requires waiting until you're calm, waiting until you have the wherewithal to be able to use your language. That means doing some self-care. Okay, if you're thinking, oh, I need to talk to my partner about this, like go for a walk, take a walk around the block, go to the Gottman Institute, look at one of their blog posts that really talks about the soft startup, remind yourself what the formula is, and then do it from a place of groundedness and calmness. Or if you can't do that, then wait. Okay, so that when you do start the conversation, you're increasing the likelihood that it's a productive one. If you just take a beat, wait until you're ready to go. Okay, so this is the linear cycle. So using John Gottman's gentle startup instead of a criticism, which lands as a perceived attack, the hope, if this is working the way it's supposed to, there's a lot of different reasons why things can go south, by the way. I'm sorry, sideways. I shouldn't say south. There's a lot of reasons why you might do all this stuff and it goes sideways. But we're talking about increasing the likelihood of a productive conversation. So with John Gottman's gentle startup, the idea is that the listener is going to take that soft startup as a bid for problem solving instead of as a form of attack. And then the hope is that we'll get a constructive dialogue. Okay, so let me walk you through it. You start with I feel, and then right here, you talk about your feeling. Now, right here, you want to talk about your feeling as an emotion. So you don't say I feel like, you don't say I feel that, and you definitely don't say I feel you. Okay, it's I feel emotion about, fill in the blank, neutral situation. And then, and my need or request is blank. So there's a reason why this is so important. Because if we stopped here, we're still going to be in attack defense land, I guarantee you. Because it's basically just me talking about my feelings, which still is going to elicit defensiveness from my partner. But the minute that I go into, and my need or request is blank, and I make a proposal for a solution, what happens is behaviorally and conversationally, the thought process is going from the past, right, which is you did this, no, I didn't, to the future, which is, could you please do this? And generally, if a relationship is in a pretty healthy place, when somebody asks us to do something, we feel like, oh, let me try to do that for you. Let me at least check in with myself and see if I can give you what you're asking for, which is a very different place. If somebody says, hey, can you do me a favor and grab me a seltzer from the fridge, is very, very different than, why didn't you grab me a seltzer? You were right there. So it's future. Like, I'm going to go do this thing now and meet my partner's need or request, versus an argument about the past. It's very hard to argue about the future, right? Like, most arguments are about the past, if you really think about it. Okay, so here's an example. I've been frustrated that Thor hasn't been walked the past few days. Okay, I've been frustrated as the emotion. Thor's the dog. Thor hasn't been walked the past few days. Neutral situation. Can we discuss a plan for how to make sure he gets his morning walk? And that way, oh, look, there's Thor. We've got Thor. That way, the couple is working together to find a solution to the problem. They're trying to think, okay, what are we going to do to make sure that this happens? Because we want our dog to have a walk, and we don't want to fight, basically. So the idea is, here's your gentle startup. It's a reduced risk of perceived attack because you're focusing on a request instead of a complaint from the past. And then the idea is, here's the line. So instead of the circle, here we have the line. Okay. So that is how to prevent the attack defend cycle. Now I want to talk about how to escape it once you're in it. And here we have the exact same cycle, but the place for intervention is around this corner. Okay, so my partner criticizes me, and my knee-jerk reaction is to what? Feel attacked. That's normal. We know that happens. However, the same way that I told you up here, go for a walk and get grounded before you bring up your request, over here in your perceived attack land, what you're trying to do is some mental gymnastics right here. So that when your partner is telling you, there's something that's really, really important to me, and it comes out in a way that's unskilled. And I get it. Like, they should be at this webinar too. They should be learning the soft startup too, but maybe they don't, and maybe they didn't, and maybe they criticized you. Okay. So then what do you do? So then what you do is you think, okay, I feel attacked, but on some level, I'm going to really try my hardest to find a kernel of truth in what my partner is saying. I'm going to try to see the way in which they wouldn't be bringing this up if there wasn't something that they want or need, and that I'm their partner and I'm here and I'm going to take that seriously, even though they didn't use the best communication skills that they should have used. I'm still going to try to take the high road, because I don't want to fight all afternoon. We were supposed to go to the park and, go for a walk with the dog Thor. So if I don't want to fight, I can make a difference here. So instead of getting defensive, okay, what Gottman wants us to do is find the kernel of truth, use the antidote of defensiveness, which is taking responsibility. Okay. And so then we've got this line, which is, instead of cycling around here, you're saying, okay, I right here in the cycle, I'm going to take responsibility verbally by finding the kernel of truth, and then have constructive dialogue. So one of the things that you'll practice is trying to scan for what you agree with, because you're going to be thinking about all the exceptions to the rule. You're thinking of every single time you took Thor out for a walk. You're not remembering, oh yeah, yesterday I was in a rush. I just let him out really quick, and he really didn't have a chance to run around, and he deserves that. He needs that. So it's about you scanning to see the ways in which you have areas of imperfection, and that your partner has some validity in part of what they're bringing up. It doesn't matter. You might disagree with 90% of what they said, I am still going to encourage you to articulate the 10% that you agree with. So when you focus on your imperfection, it feels vulnerable because it feels like you're putting yourself out there to be blamed. Whereas counterintuitively, by putting yourself out there and admitting some of the ways that you may have messed up, that's setting a new culture in your relationship to make it a little bit easier for both parties to practice taking accountability for the ways in which they are also contributing to both the solution and the problem. Okay. So an example of using the antidote to defensiveness would be, you're right. I know I agreed to walk him every morning and I haven't been following through. And you might even take it even further and say, I agreed to do that. And it's true. Like, I take him for these long walks, but he really does need to stretch his legs. It's not fair to him to only let him out in the fenced in yard. So the more that you can own and embrace the ways in which your partner is saying something important, the more likely it is that the conversation will begin to soften in general and move to productive example. Okay. So here's how it might look using this same example. You've been forgetting to walk Thor every morning for over 2 weeks. Okay. So listener finds the kernel of truth. You're right. I agreed to walk him in the morning and I haven't been following through. And then you get a constructive dialogue. So that's how we go from the circle to the line. Okay. And just another, I just want to show this to you again so that you're seeing how these things are a circle and these things are a circle. Okay. That it reinforces the more that I use a gentle startup, the easier it's going to be for my partner to take responsibility, the easier it is going to be to stay focused on yourself and not blaming, but more have a culture of generosity instead of competition when things are going well. So this is the sound relationship house theory, and we're obviously not going through this today. We're almost done with this webinar. This is a whole, you'll find all kinds of trainings on all of this. But the reason that I'm showing this to you is because I want to remind you that conflict management is just this tiny little part of co-creating a healthy relationship. So I don't want you guys to focus so much on conflict management that you're forgetting the big picture: trust, commitment, shared meaning, right? Love maps, fondness and admiration, like fun, wonderful, exciting things about your relationship are way more important than this like tiny little thing. You want the conflict management to be the exception to the rule. And so sometimes when you think, why do I have to admit that I'm wrong? Or why should I take the kernel of responsibility? Or why should I have to, take the time to be so like nice and kind to my partner when I'm mad at them? Like, why should I do that? Sometimes you tell yourself like, I shouldn't do that for them, because I'm sort of mad at them. But when you remind yourself, like, this is the big picture, and by me letting certain things slide or taking the time to be a little more kind with my language, you get to enjoy all this other stuff, right? Like, you get to, like, you're not fighting when you're out at a restaurant eating this expensive meal. You're not fighting, you're enjoying it. So you benefit from doing this. So if you use these skills with that compassion, with that empathy, and really like connect with the part of you that remembers why your relationship is worth it, why this person that you're in love with is worth it for you to use these skills, then the language that you use is going to come across as a lot more authentic. So empathy is a crucial thing for all of this in order for it to work, quite frankly. You want to be able to take I could talk about it like an elevator, like if you're up here in your brain, like that's your thoughts, and you want to take the elevator down into your heart when you're talking. That sounds really hokey, but like you want to be really, really connecting with the part of you that loves your partner and knows that you deserve to feel loved. And when you're in touch with that part of yourself, then the skills will actually feel congruent with your truth and not just like you're reciting a formula that you learned at a workshop. And that's really the thing that's going to make or break this in terms of success. As my gift for you, I have an empathy course because I do feel like that is the single most important communication skill. It is the super glue that holds relationships together is empathy, because if you don't have empathy, all the communication skills do is they just land flat. So I hope you found that helpful in terms of how to manage conflict in your relationship. As I mentioned, empathy is the real thing that is going to determine whether or not using these formulas and these skills actually work in the real world. So go ahead and visit that, get on my email list, and you'll also get weekly communication tips from me. Okay, thanks for watching.